All right, my friends, welcome to another episode of Creative Casual Convos with Zach Barney and Rob Carney. Zach, how are we doing, my friend?
Doing great, amazing on this beautiful Wednesday here in Bogota.
All right, so tell me about this challenge you're doing. You said that you just finished a challenge. I want to hear all about it.
Yeah, so I just finished a 14-day challenge called Rooting into Love and Presence, and it showed me like, okay, the medicine that I'm giving is presence, like helping people get present and grounded. And the funny thing about it is like the secret to becoming present is it's really there's no secret at all. And it's like we all know, like we all have this wisdom within us. It's just unlocking that and really embodying that wisdom so that it becomes natural. Because the way we've been living our lives is very unnatural. We're
Right.
disconnected, just disconnected from nature. And a lot of the healing that we're doing at the moment is just learning how to reconnect with nature, right? Reconnecting with the elements, with the air, water, fire, earth, and it sounds like something so simple, but in reality, it really is a lot more simple than like we try to make it. We try to make
Right.
it this really complicated thing, and it's really simple actually.
I want to share a little example today that was interesting. So, we had Ice and Iron on Saturday, which, for anyone listening that isn't aware, that's basically our meetup we do once a month in south of Boston. And we do, Tai Chi, workout, breath work, ice bath. And it's a lot because I'm one of the facilitators. So, I'm kind of, it's like the next day I felt hungover, basically. Like I was just so exerted. And, the past couple of days, so that was Saturday, today's Wednesday. And this morning, I was thinking like, oh, like, am I still too sore to work out? And I was like asking my brain, and it was such a psychological, not being present to the moment, not like being to my body, like, hey, like, do you want to work out today? It was like my brain, like, oh, like, should I work out today? It's like, no, don't ask the brain, ask the body. The body is the one that needs that. And it really came down to presence. And that's what really just reminded me when you said that. It was, you know, trying to be so psychological about everything. We live so much in our heads that we're not able to be in the present moment because we're so focused about the next logical thing, that it was a really big realization to me today that I was like, wow, I'm asking my brain if I should work out. I should be asking my body, do I want to work out today? And so then long story short is, I was actually planning to, do a workout later in the day. I ended up doing it this morning just because I came to that realization. I was like, I'm just going to do it. And I did it and I feel much better now. But it's funny how I was so focused on future tense. Oh, I'll work out later when I'm ready, or when I perceive I may be ready or more ready or whatever it is. But it really is interesting how we're so out of touch with the present moment and out of touch with our own bodies. And even myself, who I think I'm pretty self-aware, there's still so always work to be done.
Yeah, I love that concept too of, when I'm ready, I'll do this. When I'm ready, I'll start that business project I really want to do. Or when I'm ready, I'll start changing my diet and focusing on nutrition. Or when I'm ready, I'll make that move to that new place that will inspire me. I feel like a lot of times we get so caught up in thinking about, okay, when I'm ready, then I'm ready to make the action.
Right.
And in reality, it's like, no, just make it now. And then you'll get more clarity along that process by making a lot of mistakes and, messing up. In that process, you learn so much as well. It's like, just start before you're even ready to start.
What I love about that too is that we're never going to be ready. We're always going to have some reason, some excuse why we can't do it now. And that's why we project it in the future. Like, it's so much more of an ego boost to be like, oh, I'll work out later, as opposed to, oh, I'm not going to work out today. It's like, it feels better to be like, oh, I'll do that later. I'll start this business when, or I'll, commit to that relationship when, or do X, Y, and Z when. Because in our heads, like, oh, well, I'm still going to do it. But then when that time comes, we generally make up another excuse. So like you said, so much of it is a practice I've been really looking to embody is as soon as the thought pops in my head, action immediately. Don't put it off. Don't think about it. Even this morning, I was thinking, oh, like, cause I turn my phone off at night. So it's off and then it's on airplane mode and turns back on. I woke up, I was like, oh, I got to touch base with Zach to make sure that, we're still good for this morning. But then I was like, oh, my phone's off. Then it's going to be on airplane mode. Then I don't want to hold it while all those EMFs are coming back in. So I was like, I'll just take a shower first. And I caught myself. And I was like, no, I'm going to turn my phone on and then brush my teeth and then text Zach while it's going there. Because otherwise I'm going to forget. And I do that all the time. I say, oh, I'll remember later. And not only are we procrastinating when we do that, we're also just wasting a lot of mental space. And I think that's a big thing that I'm finding is that I'm trying to remind myself, oh, make sure you do this later, make sure you do that later. But I found it's really helpful to just write a list or just take immediate action and just get it out of our head and just, get it out there.
Yeah, and I think sometimes there's moments where we create too many things on that list too, and not everything's actually a priority. And when we can really realize that too, that's really key to actually have less things to do in a day,
Yes,
and
I agree.
really to be like, okay, this is something that is a priority for today, something that needs to be done today. And so you do it, you prepare yourself for that priority as well. So that's kind of how like my morning ritual changes based off of what my priority is for that day. Like for example, today I saw like, okay, I have you know X amount of calls scheduled for this day, and I'm going to need energy throughout the day to keep doing those calls, right? So I was in the same situation this morning. I was like, okay, I have 30 minutes right now, and I know I need to boost my energy a bit before I start this day. So I automatically was like, okay, I'm gonna go exercise really fast. So I went for a little walk and jog, and I just moved pretty much. And and then afterwards, I came back and I was like, okay, took a nice like cold shower. Then I was like charged up for the day. And it's really real, like recognizing your energy and understanding how much energy do I need for today. And some days you're going to have days where it's like, okay, this is a more of a rest day where
Right.
I'll recharge. And then the other days you'll be like, this is a charge up day so that I can get in the flow and to serve others. And then I'll rest afterwards. So
Yeah. And you know what I love about that approach too is it's really fully embodying the present moment is really what it comes down to is there's so many times where I'm like, oh, I had all these ideas of what I wanted to do today, but my body's telling me to rest and my body's telling me to take a nap and to read and not do all those very yang accomplishing activities. But then I tend to resist those at times because like, well, I have these on my schedule. I have these tasks that I need to get done or perceive that I need to get done. Don't really need to get done today. If they get done tomorrow, it's not going to be the end of the world. But I often find myself, pushing through that tiredness, kind of that whole no pain, no gain, I'll sleep when I'm dead type of mentality, that go, 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 which I've gotten much better at, but there's still times that I fall into that trap. And the funny part about that little trap there is that we end up half-assing everything and we end up doing things not as effectively. Like it's just straight up like if my body is telling me to rest and I'm trying to do something creative, my brain is tired. Yeah, maybe I'll write that 2-page, whatever I was working on, but it's not going to be as good because my brain isn't as fresh. The creative juices aren't flowing. Whereas if I took 20 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour to rest and walk and read and stretch, I could probably do the same thing 10 times better. So I really like what you said there is really diving into, you know, what is today going to be? Is it going to be a recharge day? Is it going to be a recharge then accomplishing day? Is it going to be a straight accomplishing day? Is it going to be accomplished then rest day? And there's so many different variables we can have to this, but I think it really comes down to what we started with, which is diving into the present moment. What does my body and brain need right now? Because again, sometimes we wake up and we have this huge list and then we look at it, it's like, I don't want to do any of that today. My body is telling me no, and that's okay. And that's one thing I do really love and appreciate about the entrepreneurial lifestyle, is to have that freedom and that option. And yes, there's sometimes where I work 7 days a week, but then there's also some weeks where, I take 2 days off in a row. And there's some days I take like a half a day off, and then I can go back to working. And it's really nice to be able to follow, that present moment and allow to unfold as it's supposed to.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I would say most people aren't used to that as well, having that space for themselves to really slow down and to pause and really focus on recharging. And I think that it's definitely a special, skill or talent that we have, a special ability, you could say, to be able to recognize those moments and realize like, okay, I'm not at my best right now. So I need to take that step back and recharge. Most people will keep going like, okay, no, I need to keep going, like keep going, keep going, keep going.
Right.
And what ends up happening is like what you're saying, like nothing is actually, great quality when you're constantly go, go, go and always looking to do more. And so having that awareness to take a step back is really key. But I also see that I think most people are so programmed as well to keep going that they won't take those breaks for themselves, even though they feel that the stress is coming.
Right.
They're like, no, like, I gotta keep going, like, through the stress, like keep going. And it's really important to have that awareness of recognizing like, okay, now I'm in a moment of stress
Right.
and how can I come back to recharge myself?
Well, you know what it is too, Zach, is, you know, at least in the corporate world, from what I see in my very minimal time in there and my outside looking in perspective, is that there tends to be a badge of honor associated with burnout, with, stressing, working yourself to the bone. It's like, oh, I worked 80 hours this week. Oh, you only worked 80 hours this week? I worked 85 hours this week. I only slept for 3 hours last night. And it's kind of like this, trying to one up each other in like this weird way. It's like, oh, I'm doing more damage to my body and I'm really working hard. But it's like kind of what you said, it's not about the quantity, it's about the quality. Because there are days that I work for 2 hours, but I get more done in those 2 hours than in a 10-hour day where I'm, kind of half here, half there, and kind of just like tired. So I think that it's really, a mindset shift, that it's not about the hours we work, it's not about how much we get done, it's how well we do these things. And I think that that's just, a general theme that spans across everything. You can spend 5 hours with your family, but if you're on your phone the whole time, I'd rather be with my family for an hour uninterrupted. Like, I'd much rather have that quality than the quantity. And I think that it's an interesting paradigm that we've entered into as a species right now, that we look at quantity as kind of like the gold standard. This person has X amount of dollars. All right, well, if they're not very happy, the person, with a lot less could actually have a higher quality of life. And so it is, really just comes down to self-awareness, I think, is what it stems from.
Yeah, and the quality of your life, it's like that quote, like the quality of your breath is the quality of your life. But looking at the quality of your presence is the quality of your life. Because when you're able to live each moment fully in the present at 100%, or even like 200%, you're living that moment as if it were like many moments.
Right.
And if you're living, for example, at 50%, you're half there. Yeah, you're missing half of that experience.
Right.
And so presence is really key to living a fuller life without adding more. Because we have this concept of, okay, once I add this, then I'll be happy. I'll get this thing and then I'll be happy. But if you can if you find a way how to be happy with what you have while gaining more, everything else becomes a bonus
Mm.
as well. And so then in this moment becomes way more fuller, it becomes way more richer because we are able to appreciate it for what it is, while also not losing track of like, okay, yeah, I do have these desires and I want to, work on myself, or I want to gain these things. But those things, like those, everything else becomes like a bonus.
Right.
And like the base just comes down to like, okay, what's really my priorities? What's my priorities for today, like right now in this moment? And if I'm hitting those in this moment, then everything else takes care of itself too.
And you know that I can sum up that whole description you just gave there with gratitude. That's really what it is being grateful for the present moment and what we currently have. And I think that, I've been talking to people about this lately, that I talk a lot about, love and gratitude. And it's easy to be like, oh, this big softy trying to talk about love and gratitude, like this airy fairy woo woo shit. Like cut the shit. It's not about love and gratitude, but what it really does come down to is being present and being happy with where you're at. And that's really, love is presence. You can't really, love someone if you're on your phone with them. Like if you're cuddling with your girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever, and you're on your phone, it's like, oh, we're so in love. It's like, well, you're not really being present, and that's not really love. Your attention is being directed somewhere else. And I think that after reading and watching The Secret of Water and Hidden Messages from Water by Masaru Emoto, are you familiar with him and his work?
Yeah, I've heard about it. I
Yeah.
haven't watched the documentary, but yeah, I've heard
Oh
of it.
man, dude, you gotta watch that. That was life changing. I watched that a couple weeks ago, and I was like, whoa, because Ed Madden, he talks about water all the time, and we did a couple of podcasts together on water, and that really opened me up to it. But it wasn't until I really watched that and started reading the books myself that I was like, holy shit, this is real. Not only is it real, but it's true. And so much of what we've been told is just, not in, I don't know if it's intentionally false, but it's incomplete. And,
Mhm.
that's one thing that he shows on there is that when we have water under a microscope, basically he'd freeze water, put them under a microscope, and then he would, as they're on the microscope, he would talk to them, whether it's say, I love you or thank you, expressing love and gratitude, they would form perfect crystals. If he says, I hate you, you're an idiot, they turn distorted crystals. And it just goes to show, our words and our intentions do have physical meaning, and they manifest in living organisms, and water is a living organism. And so even if you don't believe that at the human level, there's scientific proof that it does that in water, and we are 2/3 water by mass and about 95% water by cell count. So
Mhm.
at a physical level, that is affecting us when we are projecting love and gratitude towards ourselves and towards other people. That is actually making a physical difference in our chemistry. And that's not woo woo, that's science. That is, well documented scientific literature.
Mhm.
And that's what I really think that I'm really finding is that the more that I can be present and expressing love and gratitude, the happier I will be and the better everyone around me will be. And it's so easy to get caught up on the, like we were saying earlier, I'll do this when, or I'll be ready when, or I'll be happy when.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, we can be happy now if we look to what we already have, and being grateful for that. And it definitely does take a lot of, mindset training, but it's entirely possible.
Yeah, I agree. So gratitude is key to cultivating abundance as well.
Yes.
Just thinking about that, it's like if you want to live abundantly, I think gratitude is that key. It's a mindset. Because when you think about it, it's like, all right, even if you had, say you had nothing, right? Uh, that in that time you said you had nothing, it's likely that you have a lot of space, a lot of energy.
You have life. You have
You have
life.
like, yeah, you still
That's
like
pretty good.
if you can connect to what you have in those moments, right? You have your breath, like connection to your breath. If you're in nature, you have pretty much everything there as well in nature. Um, yeah, so it's like this state of, I feel like the state of abundance, the more I see it, it's like it's a state of just detaching from the desire, like detaching from the need to have more.
Right.
More about that. Like the happiness comes from, a lot of it's from detaching, like having everything but not attaching to it. You know, to
Yeah.
have like a really beautiful life, like abundant life, but don't attach to every single thing.
I think that comes back to our conversation of quantity over or quality over quantity, is that we're always looking for more and more and more, which, part of that is an innate survival mechanism that, think about our primal ancestors that, you always want more food, you want more resources because if an enemy comes in, you want to make sure you're prepared. Or if a drought comes in or a storm comes in, you want to make sure you have a stockpile of resources. So to some degree, that is a primal instinct to want more. But obviously, in our modern lifestyle, many of our survival mechanisms aren't quite as effective. Like our sympathetic nervous system, basically got us to where we are now. The fight or flight response is now one of the biggest destructive mechanisms in modern society, where people get caught up in that sympathetic nervous system to the point that they're producing stress hormones, inflammation, not being able to digest well. But when we really are able to be present to the moment and be aware of these things, everything changes. And that does stem from a matter of awareness and training and practice and love and gratitude and presence. And I think also, just being very clear with what we want. And I think that that's, so many people nowadays are, not very clear. They're kind of like the analogy, they're on a sailboat with no direction. The winds are just blowing them one direction, then blowing them the other direction. Then maybe they hit a rock, they get a little leak, and then they're sinking a little bit. And it's like people are kind of all over the place. And it's scary to think of you know, how far we've come with that and how much of just a general mindset shift we need. And that stems from the only way to change that is by being present with people and listening to people, expressing love and gratitude for people. And you know but it's possible, and it really is possible. And that's what gives me hope as we talk about the destruction of our planet and all these other things. As I just watched Kiss the Ground, which is a really good documentary on Netflix about soil health. And you
Mm-hmm.
know there's hope in every aspect that we say. The world is burning, the world is going down, there's all these problems, like there's hope. And if there's hope and we have potential, we can make any change that we want to.
Yeah, there's definitely so much potential within us individually and collectively. I also believe that, and I think that you're picking up on one thing that I've been coming across in a lot of my observations as well, is that we're disconnected from the earth,
Right.
the physical earth. Like we're disconnected from you know the land we're walking on, and the earth element within us. We're ungrounded. We're not present, pretty much. And in the state of not being present, we also have lost that stability for ourselves, because we're not present, we're not stable. Because we're not stable, we have a lot of fear that comes up, and we still don't know what to do with that fear, because it goes back to the first part. It's like the foundation. We're not stable, we're not present, we're
Right.
not grounded, like we're not connected to the earth.
Right. Well, with that, I really like the topic of gratitude and abundance we were talking about. So I'd love to hear, what are some things that you are grateful for in this moment?
Grateful for this conversation, for simplicity,
Mm,
to not need a lot to live abundantly. I realized that. For my breath, I'm grateful for nature. looking out my window, the trees and the mountains and the animals, the birds. Yeah, I'm grateful for my family as well, and a lot of the all the connections that are really important to me in my life, um, but especially family. I feel like the more I go down my spiritual path, I'm realizing like, oh my, I have a role within family as well,
Mm.
and it's it's been really beautiful just to observe that role of like, all right, this is where I'm at now. Like I have a role within the people that helped raise me and the people I grew up with, to realize that like, okay, family is important, and yeah, really grateful for pretty much for everything, but those are the main things.
I love it. Yeah, it's definitely, it's a practice I'm trying to embody more of, is just, expressing my gratitude, whether that's written, verbal, in my head, however it comes out, just trying to, embody that. And, in this moment, I kind of like you said, like I look out here, I have a bird feeder right here, and I can see two birds now, three birds, like they're just flying in, getting some food and flying off. And it's cool. Like it's cool to, just see that life, and a reminder of, like you said, it doesn't have to be that complicated. Like looking at animals, I think, is such a great way to look at the simplicity of life and recognize like all we're here to do is like eat and reproduce at a very basic level. Like, oh, there's just a lot more to that, but at a basic level, we're here to survive and to procreate and to, create the betterment for our species. And, it's easy to get caught up in the advancement of the human mind and consciousness and all that, which is great. And, we can use that to our advantage, but also at the same time, not being too cut off from nature, and just observing nature and recognizing patterns that we can utilize. Um, and then, yeah, there's a lot of people I'm grateful for as well. As I mean, I could go on all day for that, but I mean, the most prominent one is my girlfriend Jackie, who is incredibly supportive and, just really brings the good sides out of me and also brings the bad sides out of me in like a shadow work type of way, in terms of she exposes my shadow in a very helpful way that makes me recognize, wow, yeah, there's some areas I need to dive into, which is, really powerful, that she allows me to be open and vulnerable to kind of draw some of those deep, dark shadows from the closet and pull those out and able to work through those. So, yeah, very much grateful for her. And, a lot of the people on my Purium team, like Dale and Mike and Marcelo, and like got a whole lot of cool people there that I get to work with on a regular basis that, are always looking to improve themselves and help people. And, it's just inspiring to be surrounded by people, and like you said, having these conversations that you and I have, like, it's important to just have conversations. And I think that, you know, it's easy to say, oh, this is a waste of time because it's not work, because we could be working right now. And that's a general trick that my brain tries to play on me, is like, oh, you should be working right now. Having a conversation with someone isn't work, but this is work. It's work because it's personal development work. It's connection work. And it's also, at some point, this will be on YouTube or wherever it's posted, and this is now content that someone can draw value from, and that is creating value for the world. So, it's funny how the brain works, that every time I'm about to do something, it's not like creating content or writing something that's like, oh, that's not really work, but it is. And I'm grateful for the fact that this is part of what I do for work, is having great conversations with cool people. And yeah, and I too am grateful for, fresh water, spring water that gives me health and vitality. I'm grateful for, organic nutrition, and I'm grateful for the planet, the soil, the birds, the trees, the chipmunks that I'm seeing run around here. Like, life is good, man. And we got a lot of great things that are happening. And like you said, is abundance is here, abundance is coming, abundance is and always will be. It's just a matter of how we shift that perspective. And I feel like it's easy to say, oh, I don't have enough of this. And for me, the biggest thing is, oh, I don't have enough finances right now because I want to buy my own homestead. I want to get like 20 to 50 acres so I can start farming my land. But that's okay. Everything like, beyond that, life is fucking perfect. Like life is so good, and that will come when the time is right. So yeah, I'm just grateful for all that is and all that will be.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, it's like that. The abundance is here. It's in this moment.
Right.
It's right here. It's in the gratitude. And one thing that you mentioned is like, we're working on ourselves. I think a really big key to working on ourselves is exploring that shadow element.
Right.
And like the opposite of gratitude, if people don't really connect with, love, gratitude, because I do think that's really, it's an important part. But, the other side of that is connecting with acceptance and forgiveness, like self acceptance, self forgiveness, because that's where I think a lot of the hidden stuff that people aren't looking at is it's there. It's
Right.
like looking at our past, like how can I accept myself, like my actions in the past, and also forgive myself for those things that those emotions that I'm holding on to, and I realized that the core thing of all the like the core part of all the healing that we're doing, regardless of what area, like we could be working with movement or with nutrition, um, or with the breath. I think everything comes back to, for ourselves right now, it's a lot of letting go, like of the past, letting go of past stuff. And it's core because it forms our beliefs, and our beliefs, our thoughts form our reality.
Right.
And so at like the root of every problem that we see is probably like an experience or story that happened in the past.
Yeah.
And
It's funny you say that. It's like I was just actually went to a chiropractor um, the other day just because I've been, since I've had some past injuries and I've been starting to lift weights again, I just want to make sure I'm on top of it. And it's funny, he was asking me about like my health history and any injuries or accidents I've had. And it's funny how like as soon as I started talking, I was like, oh yeah, and that, oh yeah, and that, oh yeah, and that. And then like we start talking, and then like 10 minutes later, like, oh yeah, I forgot about this thing too. And it was all these little mini traumas that have kind of happened, whether it was a car accident or an injury or a concussion or whatever it was that, it kind of all compounds, and it's easy to kind of put in this macho man and be like, oh, that doesn't matter, it doesn't affect me. But the fact that, that was coming up. It was almost like a talk therapy session in my own physical body. It was like a cool experience of like, wow, there's still a lot of little things in the past that are affecting me in the future because either I haven't let go of them, either I'm attached to that identity, or there's just still physical trauma in the body that needs to be released. And it's interesting how, if we don't learn to release that, that can be really a big factor in how we feel moving forward.
yeah, and releasing physical trauma, this has been really key. I've been learning more about somatic therapy and looking at the mind body connection. And what I'm finding is that the breath, like a lot of the stuff I've been working on before, has kind of prepared me for this, because everything goes back to the breath. Like being able to release, it's the exhale. Being able to let go of any like physical trauma that comes up is about really taking it in, like observing where it comes from, and releasing it in the exhale. So um so yeah, in general, I feel like we can heal a lot of these different traumas through learning how to breathe, like connecting to our breath. And one story that actually came up recently for myself was my own like relation with my breath, and different like diseases or diagnoses that I had when I was younger. So when I was younger, I was diagnosed with asthma since I was like a baby, since I was born. And it's something that I realized that's been really prevalent on um, my dad's side of the family as well. And through the last couple of weeks, I've been observing like, oh wait, I realized that like through my healing, a lot of what I've been doing is learning how to breathe, and that's it. It seems so simple, but in reality, that's been a key to living fuller, like really unleashing and letting go of some of the traumas that I was holding on to before. And I think that also kind of caused this sense of anxiety too, because I wasn't really breathing. And then I realized, like, okay, a lot of people are dealing with anxiety or depression and these different problems that probably they're connected. There's a physical root, which is like breath, but then there's a mental part as well.
Right.
There's a trauma from the past, and then there's a physical result of like, oh, I can't breathe. Basically, I forgot how to breathe. Like the fight or flight.
Right.
Your body goes into that shock, and it can't breathe again. And so, like, the breath is key to a lot of the healing. I mean, we know it already. We know how we breathe, and every moment we're breathing. So,
Right.
so if we want to really go into deep, deep healing, I think no matter what we're doing, the breath is literally so key. It's essential to actually healing physical and mental traumas.
Well, I'm really glad that you brought that up because that's been something that I've really come to the realization of lately. And I'm by no means an anxious person, but when I do find myself experiencing any sort of anxiety, it's generally because I'm not breathing or I'm breathing shallowly or I haven't moved enough. And when we're moving, we're breathing. So really it comes down to, you know, I'm coming to the belief that I can say for my own self, I can't say for anyone else, but for my own experiments, anxiety comes from a lack of breathing for me. Maybe that's true for other people, maybe not. But for me, the only times I experience anxiety is if I'm not breathing very deeply. If I'm breathing shallowly, and I really notice it if I'm congested, that's really when I start to feel that anxiety is if I have congestion, because then I'm not breathing deeply through my nose. It's that, mouth breathing, more shallow. And, I feel a little congestion right now. So I have to be very mindful of, breathing deeply and breathing fully because, it's not as easy to get the air in right now or I'm a little congested. So I've really come to the conclusion that a lot of my anxiety, which happens few and far between, but it stems from not breathing.
Exactly. Yeah. And also it's like whenever something that just came up, like whenever you feel that sense of congestion, I feel like it's like so like this the key is like nutrition and then
Right.
and doing stuff like Wim Hof breathing.
Mm,
I do like whenever I feel that congestion coming in my nose, or I move also, which helps. Like moving gets the blood circulating, and then it allows like you know myself to like breathe again. So it's interesting. Yeah, it's like when you feel those signals, it's because our body's telling us something like
right.
sending us the signals. And so this goes back to um, like different rituals as well, right? Morning rituals. You don't have to do the same thing every day. If your body's telling you today, I'm feeling a little inflammation, then you can be like, okay, I'm gonna do some Wim Hof breathing.
Right.
I don't do that often. Wim Hof breathing for me is like the it's like the it's almost like a bomb, like a detonation. Like when there's everything fails, like I'm like, okay, let's go to Wim Hof breathing, and then that just like it'll flip me out of whatever I'm going through. And yeah, but I don't do it every day. It's like that secret weapon of like, okay, now it's time to really go deep and and but yeah, re- having like those different those different tools. Like my normal daily tool is like a little meditation, right? It's the maintenance. It's like putting gas in the car. I'm gonna meditate today. I'll meditate a little bit. And but Wim Hof is like, a full car wash, like deep cleansing.
Interior again, getting the
Yeah,
vacuum in there.
yeah, yeah. So like when you need it, like just go for it. Like your body's telling you.
Yeah, and I think that's really one aspect about wellness that I think I'm really trying to portray to people is that there's not one thing or one way or one food or one activity, one exercise, one anything. It's really a matter of building up a toolbox and having all these tools, like you said, that, oh, today I need this tool. You're not going to use a screwdriver for every project on the house. Sometimes you need a hammer, sometimes you need a wrench. And I think that it's really easy to say, oh, you know, squats are the best exercise, or vegan is the best diet, or carnivore is the best diet, or whatever the one thing is, or meditation is the best practice. Whatever that one thing is, like, yeah, those are all great in the right doses, in the right environments, in the right situations. And so part of what I, aim to do with Whole Health Connections is basically giving people a lot of different tools. Like, hey, we have meditation, we have superfoods, we have supplements, we have red light therapy, we have Aries tech chips, we have all these little tips and tricks that people can use, and then use what works for you on that given day. Because for me, like, I don't use the red light therapy every single day, but I use it most days and it's really nice. But there's some days it's like, I don't need it today. There's some days that, even exercise, some days it's like, all right, well, today bench press is the exercise that my body needs. But the next time I think I schedule in like a bench press day, that may not be the exercise. And that's
Mhm.
okay. And I think it's really just a matter of building up all these tools in the arsenal. And like you said, with the Wim Hof breathing, it's easy to say, oh, like Wim Hof breathing is the best breathing. It may be for certain situations and certain people, but it's not a one size fits all. And I think it's just important to make that distinction that everything that you see someone do on social media, every expert in their field of wellness doesn't just do one thing. They do multiple things. And it's really coming down to the awareness of, when to use each of those tools.
Yeah, and having people that help you unlock that awareness around you is so key also. And really unlocking your intuition. Um, one of the tools that I go to now, uh, really, so I think Paul Chek has an amazing system. And I've just been, I've been using it as a guide for my own healing. I think that's the best way that I could use, the book How to Eat, Move, and Be Healthy, and that's how I've been using it. So recently, I realized that like I could add different elements to it. So he has parts where he's talking about chakras, but also another part is elements. You can add elements, or you can also like really focus on the yin and yang of the six foundational principles of really like looking at that like, okay, I'm more in the yin. So what are some ways I can connect with the yang? Or this person's more in the yang, how can they connect with their yin energy, like their feminine energy through like physical activity, like different activities like in this world, right? And and like that's been so key to my own process and also with helping other people. It's just understanding where they're at on that spectrum
Right.
and And because if you can understand where they're at on that spectrum, you can understand where their cause of disease is
Right.
coming, like where their imbalance is. And so uh, this is like for all of us, like in this industry, such a key thing that just seems like, oh yeah, that's common sense. But but it's like, oh, it's like the person saying a lot of things that in their storytelling of like, oh, I'm ungrounded, I'm not present, I'm stressed out. They're missing that connection with the earth element. Or with water, right? Oh, my relationships are really hard. Like I can't really express my emotions. Then it's like, oh, your connection with your water, like literally like water,
Right.
and also, yeah, it's like that, right? So it's like going through those different things. Um, air as well, air and then fire. It's the same. You can go through like, okay, I have this inability to take action and I procrastinate. Oh, it's your fire.
Right.
And then going through those things like in a more intuitive basis of like looking at it for yourself and then being able to help other people through that process. And yeah, and then connecting it to like the check foundational principles of like, okay, you're having problems with your that earth energy. Maybe look at what's your relationship with your food, what's your relationship with those grounding activities, what are you doing to ground yourself. And and really that's become like the biggest thing that I've learned. It's like to see like where someone's at and to be able to say like, okay, this is something that would be important for you.
I love that. And the first thing that pops in my head when you say that is I think the best way we can recognize a lot of these, yin yang, these elements within ourselves is by interacting with other people. And I think that, I'm overall a very yang person. I'm a very go, 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 do, kind of more that workaholic tendency. And that's where, Jackie, my partner, she is much more on the yin side. And that's what I need because I need someone that's like, hold on, slow the fuck down, chill out, stop for a minute. You're going to like you're doing too much. You're trying to be too much. You're trying to say too much, act too much, everything too much. And it's imperative for me to have someone that, brings me back down to earth. It's like, hold on, stop for a minute. You're fucking freaking yourself out or trying to do too much. So stop. It's easy to like, oh yeah, like all I have to do is stop. But sometimes it takes someone else to be like, hey, Rob, like cut the shit, just stop for a minute. And it's even with Ed and Jordan, my co-founders of Ice and Iron, is that Ed and I are very yang. We're very go, go, go. And Jordan is very yin, in a very masculine yin, which is he is an incredible balance that it's unlike most people I've seen. But he's the one who me and Ed will be and then he'll be like, he'll take a deep full breath and then respond. And then I'm like, oh, right, that's what I should be doing. I should be breathing before I just keep hammering on. So it's in these relationships with people and interacting with people, and for my interactions with you, I feel like you're more on the yin side, which is very valuable for me to connect with because it reminds me to slow down. And there's times where I ramble a lot, and I recognize when I'm interacting with people, it's like, oh, I got to incorporate some of those yin qualities because that's what I need more of. And so sometimes I find the best way to see ourselves is to see how others reflect back to us and what qualities of them do we recognize that we are either, projecting. Maybe let's say you do something that I don't like. And I'm like, oh, that's probably because I do that. That's probably a projection of me getting upset with you for doing something that I normally do, or a reflection where I see, oh, you did something really cool. It's something I need to add more of. And I do feel like there is so much personal development work when looking at, oh, Zach's very earth, he's very water, very air. I have too much fire. I tend to be fire and then dump the water on the fire. It's like it's not like a small flame. It's a fucking bonfire. And then I dump the water on and put it out. So it's like, it's interesting to see these reflections when we do so mindfully in other people, which then helps with our own personal development, which helps us be a better person and help other people.
Yeah, and I think in the end, it's about our ability to serve the world.
Right.
We're doing all this inner work so that we can really serve others at a higher level. And so, yeah, it's like everything that we do is I just see it now as like everything we do is to be able to serve others, and it's become more clear as I've started to like activate my fire to like, okay, let's serve and really put myself out there. So yeah, so I think that's something that I would like to, you know, admit to everyone that's listening is like, what you're doing on yourself, the work you're doing on yourself is really so that you can serve others at a higher level as well. Serve your family and serve the world.
I love that. And I think a lot of that comes down to, so, like you said earlier, self-acceptance, for self-forgiveness, and just self-reflection. And it's funny because, as I said, I'm very fire and water. Build a fire, put it out. And even when I reflect back to how I went about college, especially like my junior, senior year, it was like I'd be like the fire of the party. I'd be the one hyping everyone up. I'd be the one like, all right, let's go. Let's play some more games. Let's do some more. Let's take some more shots. Let's do all this type of stuff. But then when it was over, I'd go back and try to be by myself for the next 12 hours and meditate and do all these things. And it was like this go and then recover. It was like very duh, 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 duh. There wasn't much of a balance. It was kind of like a seesaw, like go to one end and then got to push down the weight on the other end. And it's funny, like recognizing that I still have those tendencies to some degree, that it's like I'll work for all these hours straight and then I need a whole day to just like recover, which is okay. There's nothing wrong with that when it works. And obviously it's a much more healthy balance than drinking and partying all night. So it is interesting just kind of observe. I did a meditation the other night with Deepak Chopra. That was, where were you 1 year from now? Or 1 year ago? Where were you 2 years ago? And went back 5 years, and just really recognizing how much growth we've had, but also recognizing some of the patterns that we had over the course of that year, and then that 2 years ago, then 3 years ago. And I did notice a lot of, similarities, but also made me really grateful for the amount of growth that has been had 1 year ago, 2 years ago, 3, 4, 5 years ago. And, I think that reflection is a really great way to, prepare ourselves for growth. And it comes back, like we said earlier, is forgiving ourselves and not beating ourselves up for the past. And, when I look back at some of the stupid shit, I just laugh about it, because like I would never do that now, but I'm glad I did it because I learned from it. So yeah, it's a never ending quest of growing and learning and sharing and being more present and more loving and more grateful. And yeah, man, it's an honor to share this space with you. And I love every time that we're able to connect. And I love that we're also able to, on days that we have it scheduled, that sometimes like, hey, we're not, today's not the day, and that's okay. And I love that we're able to do that and just be like, yeah, next time, not the day, and that's cool. And we really honor the present moment to say the energy doesn't feel right today, so we'll do another time. So I just want to thank you for all the contributions that you make in our conversations in the world. And I wish that I had more time to look at all the content that you're doing, but no one has time to watch everyone's content. But every time I watch something that you put out there, it's like Zach's on his path and he's doing his thing. And I want to acknowledge you for being on your path and continuously moving forward.
Yeah, thanks, brother. It's definitely been an honor to be in this space and to connect with you in this, more intentional way as well. And yeah, in general, it's like we're all on our path, whether we are aware of it or we're not aware of it. We're on a path.
Right.
Yeah, and Yeah, but when we're aware of the path, it just becomes really beautiful to really accept it, embrace it fully. Like, okay, like I'm on this path. Let's do it. Let's do it to the fullest versus like resisting that call. Just really go for it.
100%. Oh, my friend. Well, thank you for being here today. Thank you for, as always, having great conversation. And for everyone listening, we may do this next week. We may not do this next week. We're going to go with the flow, but we're going to continue to have conversations when the time is right. So appreciate you tuning in to this conversation here. You can find me at Whole Health Connections on Instagram or my website, wholehealthconnects.com. And Zach, where's the best place for people to get in contact with you?
On Instagram at the Soulful Poet. So it's soul and then pool with 2 L's, poet, soulful poet.
Love it. All right, everyone. Thank you for listening. Zach, thank you for being here. See you next time.